Our views are ever changing. There are very few things that are static. And as we grow and as we mature in our faith, our views are changing and shifting. The pendulum swings from one thing to another. And as that pendulum swings, often as we say, we've made these drastic changes, but there are just some things that remain. And it may actually be the very thing that was core to the problem that you are rejecting, or the thing that you no longer believe. It's far too easy for us to become a caricature of the very thing that we are rejecting, the very thing that we find most problematic. People who were once legalists, who emphasized their own good works, who emphasized certain lists of things that had to be done to be a righteous person, often reject that and move on to grace. But in doing so, there is a whole other form of legalism that can sprout up, and we can become the very thing that we despise. If you grew up in an environment where questions were not encouraged, you say, wow, I really value transparency, I value openness, I value dialogue with people on all kinds of issues where there's a safe environment for people to ask their questions. You desire that because you didn't experience such an environment in your upbringing. So you're looking for a safe place to discuss various issues. But as you arrive and as you land on issues and as you form your own faith and your own opinions on things, it's very easy for us to do that exact same thing, to shut down conversations, to feel like certain issues are beneath us, to not want to participate with certain kinds of people in conversations that we no longer appreciate or find to be hurtful. We can again become the very thing that we are rejecting, the very thing that we are reacting to and responding can manifest itself in our faith and in our practice, even as that pendulum shifts. The pendulum has shifted, like our view has changed, but we can still embody those unhealthy approaches. You once had a problem with those who had it all figured out because you had questions. And then as you began figuring out your faith and putting periods where there were question marks, you become someone who has it all figured out. And how do you view the people who are not yet where you are? How do you view people who hold to your old positions that you see now are just they're weak and frail, and how could anybody believe such things? Well, you did at one point in time. And so there's a propensity, there's a real inclination, a proclivity for us to become the very thing that we despise, to embrace and embody the very principles that we are reacting to and rejecting, to not actually then create our own safe spaces to have conversation, but to reject people who come from our old point of view because maybe it just conjures up too many demons from the past and it's no longer really about the issue itself, it's actually about me. So if you were someone whose questions were shut down in your faith community, do you become someone who shuts down questions in your faith community? Do you encourage openness and honesty and dialogue even when people don't agree with your position? Sometimes we get uncomfortable when people don't agree with our position because it can force us to reevaluate our position, or we've already so evaluated it that we don't feel like going back over all those things. And we have to be very mindful to not take that out on someone who's seeking. I've seen people who were so reactive to legalism that they fled legalism to embrace grace, but then they formed their own type of legalism just on a new set of issues. These things that must be done to be in. This whole new set of criteria. If you say that you value openness and transparency, then truly value openness and transparency. If you say that you value truth, then you need to understand that you're on a search, on a journey for truth, that there are still things that you don't have figured out, and that the very people who are making you uncomfortable may actually have something to offer you. There may be actually something that you're missing, that you have not yet, and I have not yet arrived. And so we're going to have to be able to be put back in uncomfortable situations for us to be able to really grow deeper in our faith and closer to the truth. And it's very important for us to have trusted partners in the journey. And not just trusted partners who agree with us and everything, but trusted partners who are willing to care about us and challenge us, to speak out where they feel they need to speak out. And it must be both of those things. There are plenty of people who want to speak out and challenge us, but they don't always care. When you have someone who deeply cares and is willing from that caring perspective and view of you to speak out about something that they see in your approach or something that they see about the way you're going about things, we need to really listen to people like that. We should not let our uncomfortability build defenses and walls and ramparts that keep us from growing, that keep us from self-awareness or self-knowledge. So pay attention to the people who care and have something difficult to say. Again, many people have difficult things to say, but not all of them care. And let us not become the very thing that we despise, because that very thing will find an ironic little twisted way to rear itself back up in your life for you to become a caricature of the person who you were so frustrated with. That person who you were so frustrated, or that system you were so frustrated with, so deeply ingrained, got its roots into your heart, into your mind and soul, that it has become a part of you. And that while the issues have changed, and while the opinions have changed, and while the views have changed, the approaches remain the same. And you bring with you into new arenas the same old tired approaches that you were so frustrated with. You are now frustrating a new set of people with the way that you are operating, the way that I sometimes am operating. And don't surround yourself with people who think just like you. Listen to outside opinions. Always being exploring and searching of considerate and respectful people who are thinking through issues and arriving at different conclusions. Be willing to step back and ask yourself, how is someone who is probably more intellectual than I am and probably studied longer than I have come to a vastly different conclusion on the matter? What is their data set? Where are they coming from? Why did they arrive where they're at? Because they're probably thoughtful people. They're probably not evil people. So there's a real tendency now to demonize people who we disagree with. And I think we have to be fair to understand that just because somebody disagrees with us does not mean that they are to be demonized, but we should be considering their view and trying to understand what it is that they have to offer. And let us be open to correction. Let us be people of humility, and let us become good listeners. Because if you get so frustrated when people shut down conversations, when you were younger and you were a teen in the youth group and you were asking questions, they're like, we don't ask questions like that around here. Don't become someone who says things like, we don't ask questions like that around here. If judgment makes you angry, then don't become a judgmental person. I know a lot of people who are so frustrated by judgment, and they become some of the most judgmental people that I know. I know a lot of people who, including myself at one point in time, who really wrestled with a lot of bitterness, and they try to find freedom from that. And in doing so, they're embittering a lot of people along the way. So let us not become the very thing that we despise. So let us become more like Jesus in all things. And when we do that, we're going to find a lot more peace. We're going to find a lot more consistency. And as we change our views and we have the Bible to guide our views, we're going to find ourselves more and more aligned with Jesus, more and more aligned with the heart of God. And there is very little bitterness, anger, frustration, judgmentalism, and unsafe places to have conversations when more and more of us are Christ-like. I really love that you're watching this. Appreciate you. Please hit subscribe. We're just growing at this channel. It's awesome to watch, and I appreciate you watching these videos. We're turning some corners here to offer some content that I truly believe will help you on the next leg of the journey. So tune in for that next week. We'll do some explaining. Love you. God bless you.